October 8th, 2018 regular meeting of the Newbury School District Board of Education is called to order. This meeting is being held in accordance with Section 3313.15 of the Ohio Revised Code. Mrs. Connolly, please call the roll.
Mrs. Matthews.
Present.
Mr. Sanders.
Here.
Mr. Simpkins. Mrs. Zopp.
Here.
Mr. Sedeby.
Here. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the October 18th, 2018 regular meeting. Prior to this evening, each board member has received for review and consideration the agenda and materials associated with each agenda item for the board's approval. The public can access the agenda through the district's website. The agenda is available through the district's website for public viewing the Friday prior to the board meeting. Board members have the opportunity to call the superintendent and treasurer for information concerning agenda items and to request, if needed, additional information. There are two places on the agenda when the board entertains comments from the community. The first hearing of the public is dedicated to those who wish to address the board on agenda items only. The second hearing of the public is dedicated to those who wish to address the board on any subject you wish to speak about, whether it be on an item on the agenda or another issue. When addressing the board, please state your name and comments are limited to 5 minutes. Please address questions to the president. Please join me in standing for the pledge of allegiance. and 3 of our board members had the privilege to be taught by Mr. Michael, or Mr. Michaels, however he knew him to be named. He had taught for Newbury. This year would have been is his 30th year. So over those years, as you can imagine, he impacted so many lives. And for those he taught alongside, and those he coached. And I'd like to take a few minutes to read just a few of the words from former students and his colleagues. He was one of the most kind, even-keeled coaches I ever had. He helped me learn to run on my toes. One of my favorite memories of him was on cold, snowy days he would have us inside in the hallways learning how to get out of the starting blocks fast. He taught me so much about racing, but more importantly, was a man full of respect and kindness. I'm really sad to learn of his passing, but thankful for all the lives he affected so positively, including mine. Another person wrote, "It's extremely hard to put into words how one person can affect your life. However, Mr. Michael did just that. At first, he was my teacher. He was not easy. He expected the most from you. He demanded only the best. Next, he was my track coach. He taught me the importance of putting forth the effort. He was the coach that let me try the long jump with no practice, and because of him, the next day I set the record. Last, he was a colleague, a teacher that went above and beyond, like always, to impact the kids. He was always happy and always smiling. Luckily, because of our in-services, I had the privilege to work with him again. One of my favorites was sitting in with him for both sessions, asking Paul Hoynes about the tribe. Robert Michael meant a great deal to me. He impacted my life and influenced me as a runner. This has been extremely hard for all of us, but we will be there for each other as a district, stronger than ever, just as Mr. Michael would have wanted." And lastly, I remember Mr. Michael teaching from his podium at the front of his class, and can remember distinctly hearing a loud bang as Mr. Michael would kill the flies in his room with a 2x4. We never did find that pesky fly, or perhaps you just knew how to grab the attention of an early morning econ class. We will all miss him very much. He had a huge impact. He dedicated his entire career to Newbury local school district, and we're extremely grateful for all that he's done for us. If we could all pause for just a moment of silence for Mr. Michael. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mr. Sedeby?
Yes.
Mr. Simpkins? Mrs. Zoll?
Yes. Motion passed. At this time, is there anyone who would like to address the board on any agenda items only? Okay, I'm going to turn over the agenda to Dr. Hoynes, the superintendent, for the superintendent's reports and recommendations.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the board. Before I begin my report and recommendations, I'd like to echo our sympathies to the family, friends, colleagues, and students of Mr. Michael. I also want to share some of the steps we took today with our staff and students. Yesterday, we contacted the Geauga County Crisis Team, and they were phenomenal. Thank Mr. Chafee, Mrs. Tomasetti, and Mrs. Dolans. We came in yesterday and tried to prepare for today. The staff met with the crisis team 7:30 this morning, and they had the opportunity to share stories and get together as a staff. It was a very emotional and tough meeting, being small and such a family. Crisis counselors were in the building all day. As I went in, there averaged between 5 and 10 students all day long. Mr. Chafee attended all of Ms. Roberts' classes and supported the students in the classroom. We provided resources for parents and staff members on how to deal with students who were dealing with grief. We also had an art and writing table for the students to share their memories of Mr. Michael, and we will continue that support as long as we feel it's needed. Okay, at this time, I'd like to recommend approval of the donations listed in the consent agenda A1.
Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Zock?
Yes.
Mr. Simpkins? Mr. Sedeby?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Okay, at this time, my two reports are on PowerPoint. If the board doesn't mind sitting down in the front row, it might be easier for them to see. My first report tonight is on the district report card. And I want to preface this report with that a district report card is only part of the puzzle. We have many, many ways to measure our success in the school district. The report card is just one of them. So as I report tonight, I'm going to break it apart about what we learned from the report card and how we can continue to grow. So this is the first year that the state of Ohio Department of Education decided to give an overall grade for the whole report card. So as I mentioned last month, we received a C, but that C is made up of those 6 components. Now what is interesting about the report card, which is why we can't ignore it, is that each component measures something different. So out of each component, we have a better idea of how our students are performing and what kinds of things we can do to improve. The first component is achievement, and it is made up of 2 pieces. The first piece is how many indicators the students met. So that's just a flat-out score. The kids take a test, they get a percentage, and you have to get 80% to meet that indicator. We didn't do very well with this indicator. We did get a D. It's only 25% of the component grade. Where we did better was the performance index, which is 75% of the grade, and the performance, I'm going to go back to indicators met, because you might be curious about which ones we met. We only met one indicator in the elementary school, and this is a brand new indicator this year that measures chronic absenteeism. If your students are absent more than 10% of the year, you do not meet the indicator. In elementary school, our kids came to school. Unfortunately, at the high school, we did not meet that indicator. So that's an area that we know we need to work on, because we need our kids in school in order to teach them. The indicators we did meet, you could see, were at the junior and high school level. And I listed them there: grade 7 ELA in math, biology, ELA 1, and of course retake exam, U.S. government, and American history. I need to say that with a small school, we are 1 or 2 kids away from getting a B or an A, because they just simply divide. So we have a bunch of 78%. So if we had 1 more student pass, we would have bumped up. So I think we need to take, especially the indicators met, we have to be real careful in looking at that and making assumptions. The performance indicator, which is 75% of indicators met, that tells you how well our students performed. And this is, the calculations for this are the craziest thing I've ever seen, because for every single test to get into the advanced or into the advanced plus, all the percentages are different. So it didn't make sense to me that if you fail an indicator, how can we have all those kids in advanced? Well, maybe to get advanced, they only had to get a 50% on the test. So it's a very kind of crazy way, I think, of calculating it. But what I see, if you look at the last 3 years, our performance index has stayed pretty steady. But what's good about that chart is we always want to move kids into a higher bracket. We want to challenge them. We want to take our accelerated kids and we want to move them into advanced. And you can see in the last bar on the right, we have moved more kids into the advanced area. So that's a very good thing, and you can see that our number of proficient kids has stayed the same, and the kids in the limited area have stayed the same. So I think we're pleased with this chart. Well, so if you draw conclusions just about that component, we have the literacy collaborative going on. It's working. Our English language arts scores, especially at the elementary school, are going up. Math is a different story. We're not as successful in math. So this year we have a new program called Star Math. And what it will do, it will let teachers give ongoing assessments so that they can see where the kids are at and what they need to focus on. Now, when I went to school, the teacher just taught the textbook. It didn't matter if you got it or you didn't get it, you just moved along. Now teachers teach the content standards. So for example, in 2nd grade, it's an expectation in math that all kids can add and subtract up to 20. Well, if they use Star Math and they see that the whole class can already do that, they're not going to teach it. When I was a kid, they would have taught it whether you knew it or not. So that's a big difference. So now we're more focused on the content standards, and we think the Star Math will help our teachers with that. Overall, basically what we're focusing on is differentiating instruction. We want to take kids where they're at and move them forward. And we feel like we're going to do that with a new software product we bought called Campus Visualization. So Ms. Hinkle can look at her content standards. She can see right away where the kids are at. She can hover over that content standard and see who's mastered it and who needs extra help. The next component is gap closing. And with the gap closing, the state wants us to look at what they're calling our most vulnerable students. The students who maybe haven't experienced success, and they look at the subgroups of economically disadvantaged, students with disability, and we don't have enough Black students to have a subgroup. So those are the subgroups they've identified for us, and they measure the progress that we've made with those subgroups and measure them against all the kids in the state in that same subgroup. So the goal of this is you want to get to the red dot. And you can see in the left chart is English language arts. You can see we have decreased the gap. So we're doing better than those subgroups across the state. And then on the right, you can see in math, we reached that dot in all those subgroups. That is why we got an A in gap closing. The next component they look at is K-3 literacy. And what they do is they look at all students to see in K-3 to see if they're on track to pass that 3rd grade guarantee test. And this year, and I'm showing this because this shows that we're good, is that this year they even raised the target. They made it harder to be successful. And we had 12 kids off track to pass that test, and we got 11 of them on track, which is why we got an A in gap closing. So what are we going to do about that component? We're going to keep what we're doing. We're going to just keep up the work we're doing because we're being successful there. And again, we feel like the Literacy Collaborative is just going to help us continue to do that. The next one is progress, and this might be one of the most important components on the report card because it takes every kid and they want to grow that kid a year. So it doesn't matter where you are on the continuum, you want every kid to grow a year. If you get a C, that means they've grown a year. If they get a D, they've grown less than a year. If they get an F, they've significantly had way less growth in a year. Also, if they get a B, that means they made more than a year's growth. And A, they put in the word significant growth. So if we look at that, if we look at all our students in the school, we got a D. So this is an area we have to look at, because when you look at that, overall, our kids did not grow a year academically. But if you look at our gifted students, they made a year's growth. If you look at our students in the lowest 20%, this is an area we have to work on, because those children made significantly less than a year's growth. Really good news here, though, is our students with disabilities made more than a year's growth. So these are areas, again, that we're using just how do we keep improving. And this campus visualization software, a teacher can look at it and see exactly who those kids are in that lowest 20%, so that we could make sure that we could get those kids growing academically. So I think I just summarized that. Okay, the next one is our graduation rate. And this looks at, are your kids graduating in 4 years? And also, are they graduating in 5 years? And we got a C. This is another slide that we have some concern with, because if you look at the chart on the left, it compares our graduation rate with similar districts. So the state of Ohio, ODE looks across the state and compares us to districts similar to ours. So they're not comparing us with Solon or even Berkshire or any of the districts around us. They're districts that are very similar to ours. You can see ours is lower than similar districts and pretty much in line with the state. And I think we want to be better than similar districts and the state. On the right is even a little bit more concerning, because if you look at our trend line, I don't think that's the direction we want our trend to be. The last component is prepared for success, and this is newer in the report card. But we're looking at, are kids ready for college? Are they ready for careers? And when we look at this, the way you get points, I know that's hard to read, but there's a few areas that we can definitely work on and improve. ACT participation, only 47 of our kids participated in the ACT. This year, all our kids are going to be required to take the ACT, so that will jump up. The other thing is you get points for having AP classes or IB classes, so we are looking at next year adding more AP and IB. So we're addressing some of the current concerns in here. So those are all the components. These are the values. So for achievement, you got 20%. You can read what the percents are. And when they add all that up with their point value, we got an overall grade of a C. So just big picture, what are our strengths? We are closing the gap, great strength. K-3 literacy, that's important that we're getting all our kids on track by 3rd grade. Our value added for special ed, growing more than a year, that's remarkable. Really, value added for gifted, that's a good job. And then in achievement, we've met more indicators than last year, and the percentages went up, and I really think in a bunch of them, we're 1 or 2 kids away from really raising that achievement grade. Where are our opportunities? Again, we have to look at those lowest 20% achievers and strategize. And again, I keep saying the word differentiation, but we can't just go on the same pace for all kids. We have to differentiate and make sure we meet the needs of those kids in the lowest 20%. I think the STAR math is going to help our math scores. Adding ACT and honors classes. The other thing we're doing is early warning signals. There's 3 early warning signals if a kid is in trouble not to graduate. It's behavior, attendance, and grades. So when we get campus visualization, it'll immediately tell the teachers and the counselor who is in danger of not graduating. And we need to start earlier, 9th grade. If we have kids in trouble, we need to start addressing it then. Also, industry recognized credentials. Not every kid needs to go to college or should go to college. We need to find out what their interests are. So we need to look at industry recognized credentials. and how we can work with different institutions around us to see if we could get the kids those credentials so they're ready when they graduate. And also, we need to devise a plan. We're working on how do we get our kids to school. Because we cannot, this year it was 13-point-some% of our secondary kids aren't coming to school. So we need to work on that. Are there any questions from the board?
I have a question. You said there were similar districts that were compared to us, and what was the overall grade for those districts, and how do you compare to those similar districts?
The similar districts, about half of them got Bs, a couple of them got Ds. So we're kind of in the middle of that.
You've got the lowest 20%, you've got the gifted, and you've got special needs. Where does our average show most?
That was a D, that was that overall. Any other questions?
In K through 3 literacy, you said there were 12 students that were off track. So I remember last year, we didn't score, so I assume that A really helped, and that's really great, because that's showing that the literacy collaboration is working. So what causes a non-score versus an A? I mean, that's a big difference between two in 1 year.
So Mrs. Zock wanted to know, last year we did not get a grade. Why did we get a grade this year? Last year we didn't have enough kids off track to get a grade.
So when did they identify them as, at what point in the year?
Kindergarten. They give a diagnostic test in kindergarten, and then they look at them in first grade to see if they're on track with that same assessment.
So each year, enough students were on track that they didn't get a grade, but then last year, they were showing them off.
That's correct. Any other questions? Yeah, right now we have 11 seniors not on track to graduate, which is 26%. So we are working with those students, and we're doing different educational opportunities like online classes. And then with the block schedule, it also gives the students an opportunity second semester to make up some of those classes. So we are working with each student individually, but we've got to get those kids to school. Part of the problem is if they're not here, we can't do those things. Okay, then I'm just going to jump into my next report, which I promise is shorter. This year, we're working on a strategic plan, and those two words usually make people grimace and say, oh, no, don't make me do a strategic plan. But we just need a plan so that we can address the things we just talked about on the report card, but also everything else going on in our building. So as far as a vision statement, and I guess a really good strategic planning process, you would spend days saying, what's your vision? But we just, or maybe everywhere you go in our school, you see hashtag best day ever, hashtag best year ever. So when you think of a vision, it says, what's your desired future? That's where we want to be. We want our kids at the end of the year to say, this was the best year ever, or at the end of every day, this is the best day ever. So that's our vision. Then we decided to work on our mission, which is, how do you get to that vision? So we had an entire staff meeting, and we started in groups of 4, went through activities, and they had to combine theirs with 4 more, and then the elementary school devised one, and the high school, and then we had to get everybody together, and we do have a new mission statement, which we'll ask the board, recommend for them to accept it. But our mission statement, I love the words in there that we're going to create an engaging, encouraging, and compassionate environment for all our kids. And I like the second part a lot too, and it kind of feeds into just what I was talking about with the report card, because we want to meet each student where they're at and move them forward. We don't want a cookie cutter model. We want every student to move forward. So after we developed our mission statement, the next part was actually doing the strategic planning. The strategic directions, I'm just going to admit I chose them. Went online, looked at a million school districts, looked at businesses, and what are the typical strategic districts for most companies? We can always, or organizations, we can add to them. But if you just look at the highlighted words, our first strategic direction is we want to make sure our kids are physically safe at school. Second, we want to make sure that their social and emotional needs are met and they feel secure in school. Next, we want to make sure we use technology. We need to prepare our kids for the 21st century. How do we use that in instruction? And then the next one feeds into our report card. How do we provide rigorous instruction that's going to have high expectations for all students? And the last one, how do we remain fiscally responsible to our community while maintaining efficient and safe buildings? After what we did then with the strategic directions is we did a SWOT analysis of each of those areas. We didn't get through them all the first day, but what we talked about, so we started with safety, and we said, what are we doing better than anybody else keeping our kids safe? Then we looked at what are our weaknesses, how can we improve? Opportunities, are there opportunities out there that we could tap into? And then finally, do we have any threats to get us from those opportunities, as we develop strategies? Then every staff member volunteered for a committee. So we now have a safety committee that is going to look at this SWOT analysis, and they're going to develop strategies, making sure we continue doing the stuff that works, but adding if we have a weakness that is glaring that we need to address. So we're doing that with the different areas, and as they're looking at them, we are looking at, if they come up with a strategy, they have to say, does it help us reach our vision and our mission? Then we look at, is it specific and achievable this year? Is it measurable? And is it within our power? Because, if we can't do it, if it costs like $3 million, you can't do it, right? So all of our strategies, and I just wanted to update the board where we're at with the strategic plan. So right now, everybody's on the committee. The last strategic direction as far as fiscal responsibility, I'll work with Mrs. Palm on that particular strategy and direction. And that's it, Mr. Sanders. Any questions about where we are with the strategic plan? Okay. So that concludes my part of the agenda. Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot our other presentations. Our first update tonight is Mrs. Tomasetti, who is going to talk. October is Anti-Bullying Month. She's going to talk about our new buddy bench and introduce her students in the month.
Good evening, Dr. Hoynes, Madam President, and members of the board. October is Bullying Prevention Awareness Month, and this month we had our Buddy Bench ribbon cutting ceremony to kick off the month. The Buddy Bench concept is a simple idea to promote children to play with each other, eliminate loneliness, and foster friendships on the playground. This was an idea developed by a little boy named Christian who wanted to spread the message of inclusion and kindness. Students are encouraged to meet new friends at the bench to play, talk, and walk, or just sit and be a friend. The idea of the Buddy Bench was proposed here at Newbury 2 years ago by a 5th grade student named Gunnar. Gunnar wrote a letter to student council with this idea. He has since moved out of the district, but he was invited back to Newbury, and he actually cut the ribbon for our Buddy Bench. At Newbury, we've taught our students about how to properly use the bench, and you will see some of our 5th graders tonight demonstrate that in a few minutes. There are a few people I would like to thank publicly for the help with this. Gunnar for the idea to have the Buddy Bench at Newbury, Mr. Payne for donating and constructing the Buddy Bench, Mrs. Tokarski for decorating the bench with all of our elementary students, Mrs. Desati for taking the time to teach our students about what a Buddy Bench is and how to use it, Mrs. Stefanson and our student council for participating in the ceremony with demonstrations and reviewing our Buddy Bench pledge, Hoynes for your leadership with this project, and I'd also like to thank Mrs. Zopp, Mr. Sedeby, and Mr. Sanders for attending our ribbon cutting ceremony. I would now like to introduce 4 of our 5th graders who will demonstrate how to use the Buddy Bench: Jillian Drabeck, Lily Rondini, Glenda Caputo, and Kara Deister. And this is to dance first.
Hi, we are Newbury Elementary Student Council officers. My name is Kara and I'm the secretary. I am Lily and I'm the vice president. I am Jillian, I'm the public relations officer. And I am London, I am treasurer. Our president, Mason Talley, could not be here, but we wish him luck in his gymnastics competition tonight. Our Buddy Bench grew out of a need. A former student going to Cossack made a proposal to student council to get a Buddy Bench pledge. Buddy Bench because he felt left out and knew others probably were feeling the same way too. He knew a Buddy Bench could help with bullying problems at our school. Coach Pinley donated his time and materials and built one for us. All the students decorated it in art class, and it was dedicated and placed on our playground last Monday. Our principal, Mrs. Thomasetti, wrote our Newbury Buddy Bench pledge, which we will share with you now. Buddy Bench pledge. I promise to be kind to others. I will treat others how I want to be treated. I promise to be understanding of people's feelings. I will respect that everyone is different and individual. I will be the kind of friend I want to have. Our short presentation tonight reviews the rules for using our Buddy Bench, as outlined in Gunner's original proposal through a game. Please watch 3 presentations and clap your hands when asked for your vote. Is this what a Buddy Bench is? Please show your answer by clapping.
You can clap.
Or is this what a Buddy Bench is not? Is this what a Buddy Bench is? Or is this what a Buddy Bench is not? You are correct. Is this what a Buddy Bench is? Or is this what a Buddy Bench is not? So now we hope you know what our Buddy Bench is and what it is not. Just remember, our Buddy Bench is for letting others see that you are looking for someone to play with, a new friend. A word this way you feel like you are being left out and need a friend to include you. For showing others that you would like an invitation to play with them. A sign that you would like to meet a new friend never jump or stand on it because it could break or you could get hurt. Never kick it, scratch it, or write on it because we all created it and decorated it in our class. It's our promise to put friendship first by including everyone every day at Newbury Elementary School. We hope everyone enjoys our Buddy Bench forever. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation. At this time, I would like to recognize our students of the month, and I unfortunately only see one here tonight. I promise you they were all invited. So from kindergarten this month, the kindergarten teachers nominated Tegan Flynn, and they said that Tegan works hard to do the right thing every day. She cooperates with adults and is helpful with her friends. In first grade, the first grade teachers nominated Charles O'Brien. They said that Charles shows integrity in all the good choices he makes every day, and he does his best work all the time. In second grade, the teachers nominated Violet Zelli, and they said she is a hardworking second grader. She's helpful with a positive attitude and is always helping others and doing her best. In third grade, David Wengard was nominated, and they said David is a fine example of a Newbury Black Knight. He is cooperative with teachers and other students during class time and at recess. He's a good friend to all the third graders by helping when he is needed. David always has a desire to do his best on his classwork, and David is a super kid. In fourth grade was Taylor Toth. The teacher said that Taylor leads by example in fourth grade. They can always count on her to be following the rules and setting a good example for others. She's positive and encouraging to all her classmates. In fifth grade, Jillian Drabek, come on up here. Fifth grade teacher said that Jillian is always willing to help out with anything that they need or any of the other students' needs. She works hard and is very polite to the teacher and to adults. She takes pride in her work and even more pride in Newbury. Mrs. Gorovitz knighted Alex Benitez, and she said that Alex comes to school every day ready and excited to learn. He always tries his very best and takes pride in all of his work. Alex demonstrates integrity every day by doing the right thing and is kind to every person he meets. She is proud of Alex's dedication to his work, and he's an excellent example of a nice black knight. Mrs. Zuzi knighted Blake Welker and said that Blake has amazed us with his maturity as a fourth grader that has demonstrated with his kindness to others, his organization of materials, and responsibility to follow directions. Mrs. Cerny knighted Sophia Ioka and said Sophia comes to class every day with an excellent attitude. She gives her best effort no matter what the assignment might be, and she can always count on her to show integrity, whether it is walking into the classroom and sitting down with her folder or when she's reading with another student. Sophia is all that a Newbury Black Knight should be. And finally, Mrs. Liebling knighted Nancy Wingard and said that Nancy is a new student to Newbury. She shows excellence by working hard in her classes. She shows cooperation with her peers and is always ready to help when help is needed. Nancy shows integrity by doing her best work. And those are our Newbury Knighted students for the month of September. And that concludes my presentation for tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Townsend. Mr. Shakey couldn't be here tonight. He's going to introduce his students. He's at his volleyball game, and let's hope they win. Great season for them, and he'll introduce his students in the month next month. From our Black Knight parents, Mrs. Weber.
Hello, I'm Jamie Weber. I am a vice president of WPP. So I just wanted to give a quick little update. We had our Sharon James fundraiser this past weekend. Well, one weekend back, I guess. And it went really well. We had a great group of people that attended. We actually raised $2,500, which is straight up all going right back to our students and staff. That is actually more than we raised in the past 4-ish years we've had this fundraiser. So thanks for everybody who came out and contributed. Our upcoming events, our homecoming bonfire for the junior high and high school is Wednesday. The elementary Halloween parties are on October 31st. I believe we had our blue parent tea, and that sounded like it went really well also. The fall play is November 16th and 17th, and after prom, we'll be hosting a dessert reception before and after. So come and get a little snack before, and then maybe a little bit more snack afterwards. We always have some really good desserts. The first after prom meeting is Thursday, October 11th at 6:30 in the home ec room. After prom is also having a fundraiser, Girls Night Out Woodsign Workshop on Wednesday, November 7th at the Rookery. Registration is online only, but if you have any information, go ahead and contact Lady Polinick. BKP is actually looking for donations for our indoor recess closet. The kids go through games and balls and everything else really fast. And we have a lot of interest this year in Legos and Mega Blocks and Lincoln Logs and Tinker toys, things to build with. So if anyone has any donations or knows of somebody that would be willing to donate some of those items, clean out their closets, we would really appreciate that. Just give myself or Jocelyn Sanders a call or collect them in the office. We last year implemented a new, kind of like the nighting thing for the kids. We call it Spotlight on Our Staff. Each month we spotlight teachers and staff that have been nominated by students, parents, and our our Newbury family. These staff members go above and beyond and to make our school special. The nominations forms can be found in the elementary and high school office and in our Newbury School website. Just if you get them, turn them into the office. There's a little box in there. This month we are spotlighting Mrs. Jackson, who's in 6th grade ELA, and Mr. Miller, who is our junior high science teacher. And so we thank them for all their great things that they've done for our kids. And last, stop talking, is our second BKP meeting went really well. It was very well attended. We're excited to see so many new faces attend, and we can't wait to see what exciting things we can do this year. So our next meeting is Tuesday, November 6th at 6 p.m. in the PD room, and we hope to see some more new faces. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Weber. Mr. Sedeby, your report from Auburn Prison.
Okay, I thought I would share the report card that Auburn Career Center received. Many of the components are similar to what public schools operated on. The first one, achievement, which is number of students that pass the state tests, and the technical assessments that measure the skills and knowledge learned in a student's career technical program. For that component, we received a C. The graduation rate, which is looks at the percent of students who are successfully finishing high school with a diploma in 4 or 5 years. That component we received an A. We have had 97.8% of our students that graduated in 4 years, and 95.7% of our students that graduated in 5 years. We also have the Prepared for Success, which seems like a lot of schools have problems with. It is a fairly new component, and that's whether training in a technical field or preparing for work or college. The Prepared for Success component looks at how well prepared Ohio students are for all future opportunities. Now, in that one, we received an F. However, the next component, which is the post-program outcomes, that measures the proportion of students who are employed in an apprenticeship, join the military, or are enrolled in post-secondary education or advanced training in 6 months after leaving school. Now, in that one, we received an A. 96.7% of our students have been employed after leaving Auburn. So I'm not exactly sure how the Prepared for Success correlates with the post-program outcomes, but since what we are doing is to prepare our students good job with that. So that's our report card. Also, I'd like to report that last Thursday I went to an open house for our Auburn room, which has just been newly renovated. It's a kind of a mini restaurant. The kids prepared the meal. It was an excellent meal. They did a wonderful job. I was able to watch them work in the back. They were very professional and very nervous, as can be expected. We had some state senators there. We had some state representatives there. But they did an excellent job. And I was glad I attended, and that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Sedeby. Mrs. Matthews, legislative report.
Thank you, Dr. Blaines. Since we have 2 meetings this week, this is my PSA legislative report. Voting is upon us, and I just want to implore that everybody really heed who they're voting for, read what their voting history has been. You have until tomorrow to register to vote, and then in-person absentee voting starts on Wednesday, and of course election is November 6th. Just in general, I want to point out that not everybody understands how your elected officials affect your public education. Just to do a quick summary, our governor makes a biannual budget. They make a budget for a 2-year stretch. He comes out with it, your elected representatives join a committee that help him kind of pull that budget apart, and then it goes back and they vote on it again. So even though you might be voting for someone because you like their business acumen, they could very well be affecting how your public education dollars are being spent. So I just want to again implore everybody to really investigate who they're voting for this year, make sure it's in line with their personal beliefs. And the other thing I just want to point out is for our State Board of Education, there's only an unopposed candidate, Sarah Fowler. She's an incumbent, so no one's running against her. And just in general, in public education, I assume is important to all of you because you're all here tonight. Maybe take it up a step and start getting involved at whatever level you feel you could do your best job, so that hopefully when there's more State Board of Education elections, you can see maybe a Newbury person up there and represent us. That's election today.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Matthews. And that concludes my part of tonight's agenda.
Thank you very much. So as promised, I wanted to update the community about where we're going, where we're at with the ongoing discussions with Berkshire and West Geauga about possible territory transfer. We are still waiting for final merge forecasts for Berkshire and West Geauga. Right now, the plan is to share those merged forecasts as soon as our November meeting. We're also in the midst of getting a special edition of Nightlines, which will share news about our schools, as well as the state of our schools in respect to enrollment and finances. I also urge you to complete the upcoming surveys for the community will be online, and then the parents and staff, no, actually opposite. Parents and staff would be online, and the community at large would be over the phone. Those are not happening yet, but when they start occurring, we will let you know, and we'd like to encourage you to participate. Okay, and I'd like to now turn over the agenda to Mrs. Paul.
Okay, Madam President and members of the board, I would like to recommend approval of items A1 through E3.
Motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Oh, just sorry. Item 3, the job training. What did those kids receive? What did you know what that entails? And I would have got it. you off guard. Okay.
Mrs. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Sanders,
Yes.
Mr. Senaby,
Yes.
Mr. Simpkins, Mrs. Zock.
Yes. Motion passes.
Okay, before I get into the approval of the September financials, I just wanted to give a brief overview of where we are. Salary spending is down almost 9% compared to September of 2017. That's due to last September being a 3-pay month, and our 3-pay month this year isn't until November. Revenues are slightly above our preliminary estimates for this month, so that's a good thing. There were some fluctuations in the property tax rollbacks from the state. This year we received the payment in August, and we didn't receive it until October of last year, so that's why we are noticing some differences in revenue there. Open enrollment out has increased by 8 students from last year, and open enrollment in has declined by 70 students. But overall, the monthly cash balances remain at a healthy percentage of the total budget.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion and nope.
Yep. Mrs. Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Sanders,
Yes.
Mr. Senaby,
Yes.
Mr. Simpkins, Mrs. Zock.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Is there any unfinished business to come before the board? If not, we'll move on to new business and new business to come before the board. Okay, is there anyone who would like to address the board on any subject? Mr. Gifford, do you want to state your name and?
My name is Dave Gifford. My question is, when, on the report card, when we were being compared to similar districts, what's the criteria for similar? Is it size or something else?
Size is a piece of it, but we're smaller than our similar districts, but they look at median income, property value, they look at the demographics, so they use a number of variables for a similar district.
Thank you.
Please state your name.
My name is Judy Chess. I'm wondering with the high absenteeism and the higher grades, what kind of excuses are these kids giving?
Lack of interest. I wish I had a better answer. Yeah, there's a lot of variables that go into it that, I'm not comfortable sharing because there's a lot that goes into a child getting to school.
Any others? Ms. Brady, do you want to state your name?
Bobby Frankie, on the lines of this lady's question about truancy, is anyone going to these children's homes? Is there a truant officer? I mean, what is being done?
Yes, we have a couple different actions we could take. We do work with the truant officer. There was a student in the office the other day, and he was appalled because 4 sheriff cars pulled up to his home to look for him. He told me he thought that was kind of overkill, that he would have gone with 1.
Get on the bus.
And then we also have a court option. If students are absent for a certain amount of days, we can file in court.
Okay, thank you.
Any others? Yes, state your name, please.
Lauren Wilmot, as far as when you guys did some networking with your staff and things to see where we're lacking, how they feel we can do better, or they can do better. I'm curious as to, because we don't, as parents, we don't get to ask them that. So what were some of the things that they think,
talked about security. Some of the areas that they would like to see improved is, should we have somebody at the front door? So it was very honest, I think, and candid. We have some teachers back there, but I think it was very honest. And it was interesting because we mixed the staff, so it was elementary and secondary maybe at the same table. And they were candid about communication and how they would like to be communicated with. And so we had a number of issues. And once the committees work together, we're going to put that information, we're going to put the strategic plan online so that you can actually see what those areas were and how we're addressing them.
Brian Dietrich, Beacon Road. You mentioned during your report that there's 26% of the students that in the senior class that aren't ready to graduate. And you said what is being done, but what is the possibility of them actually succeeding in being able to graduate? What do you think the final number of students that won't graduate? And the second part is, do you think those students will come back next year, or are they going to drop out? I know that's.
I think the research would say probably drop out. The percentage of them making it, I think we're going to work hard to get most of them to graduate. But what we're trying to do though is not wait till their senior year. So we put together a plan that we're starting right at the end of 9th grade for any of the credit shy 9th graders, so that we're not waiting as long. And again, we're going to look at those early warning signs. So if we see attendance get to a certain point, and we all have to remember it's a cooperative effort. We can do what we can at school, but we also need to work with families to help us get the kids to school.
And do you have an idea what the percentages are in the other grades?
You know what, I could get back to you, but I don't know that, and I don't want to make,
Make that.
yeah, I don't know exactly. I don't want to guess.